I'm here with Levannah Morgan on My Magical Thing. Levannah, it's lovely to have you here. So we've known each other for a long time. I know you as High Priestess of the Gardnerian stream of the craft. I know you as an artist, as a writer, as a professor of the history of art film thing. What is it exactly?
Yeah, I'm such an art historian who looks at film, which is a bit different from just being a film historian.
I remember us going through some of the Kenneth Anger material in excruciating and delightful detail for a very long time.
Yes, frame by frame.
Frame by frame. Levannah, it's lovely to have you here. Please, may we see your magical thing?
Yeah, can I say one thing? I started out as a High Priestess of the Gardnerian coven, but I kind of think we've all evolved a long way from that point, which is actually, if I stopped to think about it, nearly 30 years ago. And so I wouldn't exactly describe myself that way anymore. I describe myself as the High Priestess of a very eclectic and creative coven, I think.
Fantastic. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. And
show us your magic thing.
This is my magical thing. Okay. Can you see that? Yes,
I think so.
There were several contenders, and this is the one that I picked. It seemed very right. It's been with me a long time. It also seemed very, very right for how I feel at the moment and for the general situation, the weird situation in the world that we're all living through right now. Shall I tell you what it is? Can you?
Please.
Okay. Well, it's a piece of oak root, which might look like a hand, or if you want to hold it that way, it might look like a figure.
Yeah.
That which has a front also has a back, as I once read in a macrobiotic cookery book, and so it has a front and a back. And I chose this. Oh, this has been with me a very long time, even more than the 30 years of the coven, a good 36 or 37 years old. And it dates from the time that I first came to live in Devon. Shall I keep holding it, or shall I just...
As you will. I mean, okay. I think keep hold of it.
Brandishing it now.
I'd like to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when I first moved to Devon in the early 1980s, and I didn't know whether it was somewhere I would stay for very long, and it's turned out to be where I've stayed ever since. I was helping out on a friend's farm, and their farm was right on the edge of the Blackdown Hills, very close to where, maybe 2 or 3 miles from where I live now. I expect most people have never encountered the Blackdown Hills because they're one of those in-between bits of Devon where nobody goes, which is actually quite good. But they're a sort of plateau, really, bisected by streams that occupy a space that's in between East Devon and South Somerset, and also they sort of border onto Dorset. So they're a bit betwixt and between. And just behind where I live now, a couple of miles away, is this farm, and the scarp of the Blackdown Hills rises really steeply to this beautiful plateau from which, if you're looking westwards, as I was on the hot summer's evening when this object came and met me, you can see way west to Dartmoor, and the sunset is absolutely gorgeous. And the top pasture of this farm, where they kept their sheep, was in precisely that position. And I was sent out to check that the sheep were okay, round up any missing runs, etc., which was a glorious task. And I was strolling along the top of the Blackdown Ridge, excelling in the glories of the sunset and staring off to the west. And there are great big several 100-year-old oak trees at regular intervals. And I was thinking, God, these oak trees are just wonderful. When I tripped over something and fell flat on my face and cut my nose, which was a bit, ow, and I looked down to see what I'd tripped over. And it was a piece of oak root. And it was this. So it had come and found me, and I pulled at it in something of a poor temper, it must be said. And oak roots, of course, anybody who's ever met an oak root will know. I think it's something like, it's like icebergs, isn't it? A vast proportion of the oak tree, is it 9/10 or something approaching that? Somebody will probably correct me scientifically, but some vast proportion of an oak tree is the roots, is the bit that lives under the ground. And whenever I'd met oak roots before, they were part of that. So I just tugged at it, expecting it to just resist. And it didn't. It was just not attached. So I fell over a second time when I tugged at it, and the thought of doing so pulled me over backwards. So it was obvious that we had to be together, really, as it had come and found me in no uncertain fashion and made its presence felt extremely physically. So it's a bit muddy, and it probably had a bit of sheep shit attached here and there. So I took it home, and I gently washed it, and this is what emerged. Nothing's been done to it other than after I washed it, gave it a slight coating of beeswax because I was worried that it might dry out and crack.
That's a lovely object. Can you hold it up again? Let's have another little look. Sorry, go on.
It's just been with me ever since in this form. I haven't done anything to it. I use it a lot in my magical practice. I use it for spell casting. I use it for meditation. And I suppose in a lot of ways it represents the land that I came to live in and the spirit of that land. Maybe Devon in general, but very particularly this lovely part of the Blackdown Hills, which I have lived in ever since. Well, I've lived at the foot of the hills ever since and feel very attached to. And I do a lot of my magical work there, often at a lovely place called Hembury Fort, but also in some other places up on the top of the hills. And they feel like a very, very separate part of the world from down here in the normal world. They feel very quiet and very detached. And when you go up that very, very steep scarp that takes you up to the top of the Black Downs, you definitely feel that you're leaving one world behind and entering another one. So for me, this is a spirit of where I live. And I think I particularly wanted to choose it ahead of a couple of other things that might have made it through the selection process, as it were, because over the last few weeks I have been I live on my own, and I have been self-isolating in exactly that part of the world, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but I think I've been very fortunate compared to a lot of people I know, because I live in the middle of nowhere, or a community of 12 houses. I have a garden, and there are lots of fairly deserted rural footpaths and lanes where nobody ever goes. So the experience of isolating has not been a difficult one, and in fact it's been a very creative period for me, and I feel it's hard to put into words, but I feel completely looked after and cherished by this landscape. I feel as if the 35, 6, 7 plus years I've spent in it have all made some kind of sense in the last few weeks. I've been doing things like exploring hedgerows and finding that one that I walk past regularly, if you use that Hooper's law of hedgerows, which says that every woody species you find in a hedgerow accounts for about 110 years of the hedgerow's life. So the one I've been looking at has 10 woody species in it, which takes it back over 1,000 years. Although Hooper himself says when you get to the 1,000-year mark, it gets unreliable. And it's got lots of wonderful medicinal herbs in it, and also local poisonous plants like black bryony, which is a very spectacular thing when you find it. So I've just been feeling extraordinarily looked after and helped by this landscape, and I'm very grateful to it. So I've been using my magical thing a lot. how do I use it? I sometimes use it instead of a wand, but more particularly, I'm a very traditional spellcaster, as I'm sure you may know. And I think a good spell, especially a verbal one, is very simple and very repetitive and needs to go on for a very long time. So I simply go like this for a very long time, repeating my spell as I go. And also, I think hopefully it's, keeping my close bond with my magical thing. It doesn't, unlike a lot of my, I haven't got lots of them, but like others of my magical things, it doesn't have a name. It's never given me a name. So it may well from henceforth in your honour be known as my magical thing, I suspect. I would go muttering around the house, where's my magical thing? So there we go. So it's used for spell casting. I also sometimes take it out with me and use it for circle casting, especially in the woods on the top of Henbury Fort. So casting a circle with a piece of oak root from that more or less next door to that location is completing some very nice kind of circular in more ways than one activity there. So I use it for circle casting. I often use it for meditation, and in its guise as a figure, it's the spirit of the oak to me. As you'll have gathered, I wasn't born in Devon. I'm from North Wales originally, and so I have a whole set of meanings for the oak, which come from Welsh mythology, and so it's I know we're all supposed to say that Robert Graves got it wrong these days. Well, he did get some things wrong, but then he got other things very, very right. So that idea of the oak as the ruler of the trees, as the ruler of the growing half of the year, and also as the door. In Welsh, the word for oak is very like the word for door. There's probably a similar root going on there. So the door between the worlds and between the two halves of the year is very much present in my magical thing for me. So it's got a sort of complex web of meanings, and it sits on my bedroom table very close to where I sleep, and I like knowing it's there.
Levannah Morgan, that is fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing with us the root of your magic there in Devon and its connection with your practice. That's really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. Loads and loads of love. Blessed be.
An absolute pleasure. Blessed be.
All right. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.